Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I know that I only have a couple of minutes, but I will try to get through all the questions that I have for you. Um, so, Mr. Rome, I was quickly wondering for our viewers, if you could just quickly explain a little bit about your role as the deputy director at the National Hurricane Center.
Yeah, the deputy is similar to any second in command, where first and foremost you fill in for the director in the event that they're out of the office or need to take leave or an emergency. So you got to be ready to assume those roles and responsibility in moment's notice. But secondarily, you sort of are overseeing the day-to-day operations of the center. So you're sort of ensuring everything's functioning. Some people might liken this to like a chief of staff type position or a director of operations or that type of thing. You're just sort of ensuring that the center functions well on a day-to-day basis.
Got it, got it. Thank you. So I am currently, based here in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and we are, of course, very vulnerable here to hurricanes. So I was wondering if you could please just tell me about any new forecasting products or updates from the National Hurricane Center that will be available to the public this year, and how will this help to keep the public safe and informed?
Well, we've got several enhancements that we're going to make this season, but the one that's most likely to manifest itself for your area, for your residents, is our ability. We used to only initiate forecast or initiate advisories when a system had fully formed, and systems that form close to land, that was generating very limited to no lead time. These storms were just forming right on the back, on the doorstep. Now we've already increased that ability to 48 hours or 2 days. Now we're going to extend it to 3 days. So again, systems that have not yet developed, but have the potential to rapidly develop near land, we're going to increase the lead time of that forecast and any associated watches and warnings out further in time, up to 3 days.
Wow, that's wonderful. And you mentioned storms that may rapidly form. Is there a concern for rapid intensification as we go into this season?
That's a concern every year. That's sort of a baseline concern. We've noticed that has been increasing over the last decade or two, and we want to be able to develop the tools to enable us to communicate that threat and to be as responsive as the weather is quick to change.
Got it, got it. So, sir, with your extensive experience specifically with storm surge, have there been any new developments in improving the communication of storm surge predictions as we go into this season?
Yeah, we're going to be taking some of the science and technology we developed in your backyard. We've been running tests and experiments in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands to develop the next generation storm surge model and modeling. We're going to pick that up and apply it to Hawaii, which has a similar sort of makeup, if you will. The water gets very deep very quick as you move offshore. And so for the first time ever, they're going to be getting real-time storm surge forecast out in Hawaii.
Wow, that's wonderful. So I guess moving into quickly what you have up on the screen there, hurricane preparedness. So down here we have a wonderful organization, the Virgin Islands Territorial Emergency Management Agency. They play a major role in keeping residents and visitors safe across the Virgin Islands. Can you tell me a little bit about how the National Hurricane Center will be working with local governments and agencies to improve communication and preparedness?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest things we do in the off season. A lot of people like to jokingly ask us, what do you do in the off season? And that's precisely what we're doing. We're working with local emergency managers, planners, first responders, to help them update their hurricane plans, to help them test, to help them drill, to help them walk through their assumptions, and overall get ready for hurricane season. In many cases, evacuation planning, evacuation protocols, or just hurricane preparedness protocols have to evolve as society evolves and as the weather evolves. And so ensuring that we're, eyeball to eyeball with these local officials to help them work through and update their plans is probably one of our biggest accomplishments in the off season.
Wonderful. So regarding being prepared for hurricanes this year in the USVI. Is there anything specific that Virgin Islanders should be aware of and prepared for this year?
Power outages are becoming an increasing part of hurricanes. They've always been there. Losing power in the Caribbean during a passing hurricane is certainly not news and not new. But what we're seeing is more of situations happening because of the power outages. So often you have oppressive heat in the days after a hurricane has passed, and without air conditioning or fans or these types of things, that rely on power, we're seeing more people succumb to heat-related, cause of death, heat stroke, these sorts of things. We're also seeing situations where people are lacking easy access to health care, or the loss of power is making it harder for them to take care of themselves. Maybe they're on a respirator, or maybe they, diabetic and need to keep their insulin cool. But you can imagine a myriad of cascading issues that come from the absence of power. So stop and think about what you would do to take care of yourself and your family for not just one day without power. What would you do if power was out for a week or even 2 weeks from a major hurricane?
That's a very good point. Last year we had Tropical Storm Ernesto come across, and we in the Virgin Islands, and we lost power for a few days just after that one. So it's definitely a great point. Um, are there any new changes this year specifically ahead of the hurricane season regarding preparedness? I know that National Hurricane Preparedness Week is coming up. Anything new that we can be aware of for this year's preparations?
We're really asking people to take a step beyond just stocking up your hurricane kit. Just getting non-perishable food and water. That's sort of a baseline, bare essential preparedness step. But we want people to take the next step. For example, how are you going to communicate? What's your communication plan when you lose cell phone? You're not going to have cell phone service, or at least reliable cell phone service, for days or weeks after a hurricane. How are you going to communicate with friends and loved ones? If you have an emergency during a hurricane and you need emergency assistance, how are you going to reach out and get that emergency assistance? A lot of people don't think about this, and they pull out their cell phone, and suddenly, their entire lives, nothing works. And then if the battery goes dead and you got no ability to recharge it, all of your contacts are you can't get access to your contact. So just think through these sort of do you need to write down your emergency contacts on a piece of paper somewhere, such that if your cell phone is not usable, you can still have that information?
Great suggestion. I guess my final question for you, I know that the National Hurricane Center will be releasing your official forecast for the season in the coming weeks. But is there anything, what would be the most important, if you could say one thing to our viewers out there in the Virgin Islands, what would be the most important thing you would tell them?
Not to get too wrapped up around the seasonal forecast. NOAA will release its seasonal forecast on May 22nd. That's still several weeks away. Making a forecast this early in time is not really reliable. That's why we don't do it. But often people put too much emphasis on that seasonal forecast. And it's telling you the overall activity for the entire season over the entire basin. It's not telling you anything specific about the Virgin Islands. It's not telling you whether the Virgin Islands will be threatened. It's not telling you whether the Virgin Islands will be threatened 3 times, much less 1 time. And so, to me, society puts too much stock or too much focus on that. And often, to borrow a phrase from your line of work, buries the lead. And the lead is literally preparedness. None of us can predict. No, I cannot predict if a hurricane is going to impact my home this year. I can't. But I need to prepare for one. And I need to do the exact same thing and be diligent and do it every year.
Wonderful. Well, Deputy Director, Mr. Rhome, thank you so much for chatting with me today. And thank you I think I can say for all of us down here, thank you for all that you all do. I will be here throughout the season. If there's anything I can do for you to help get the word out, I will certainly do that and do the best I can to share the hard work that all of you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.